This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Homework is
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
It's Thursday, and welcome to the program. Snow continuing to fall across much of southern Michigan, and a lot of snow has fallen already. You know, the last warning I gave you yesterday is be careful along I-94. At least one fatal crash there on 94 near US 12 involving the snow. A lot of snow out there. It's a big snowstorm. No question about it. This is a big one. Most of the schools, you know, in southern Michigan closed. Closed early yesterday, most of them, if they hadn't already been closed. Closed for today. The snow expected to continue into the afternoon today. You know, into the afternoon today. So this storm, a powerful storm here, it has spawned tornadoes and really rough weather across much of the nation to the east and to the southeast of us. Very strong storms in many places. So, I mean, this is a serious weather maker, not just here, but to the east and to the southeast. Some areas of the state could receive as much as 6 or 7 more inches of snow through 8 o'clock tonight. Yeah, the snowstorm is about half over. That was as of, midnight. So, it's how, the snow totals could be exactly what they said for once. A foot, maybe more. Just trying to keep an idea, but see all this moisture coming up. All this moisture coming up from the Gulf meeting the cold air. Grand Rapids could pick up another 4. The Thumb region maybe as much as 6. Saginaw Bay City 3 to 5 more. Lansing 3 to 5 more. Kalamazoo the same. A little less in Flint and Jackson 2 to 4. Same for Ann Arbor. And Detroit's going to get the least of it. So by this afternoon it should start to taper off. But if you don't need a commute this morning, stick around. Leave your radio on. And like I said, avoid I-94. That stretch from, Battle Creek to Pawpaw, the stretch. Just ugly the way it sets up in the wintertime. The way the winds come off the lake, and it just becomes whiteout conditions. All right, on the program today, I have Pastor Aubrey Shines here. He says that the Barack Obama was raised white, and he doesn't understand black America the way he pretends to. We'll have Congressman Tim Walberg with us on the program. Pete Hoekstra, former congressman, will be here. Showing senior fellow. He's here to share some things to talk about and who he's joining on the campaign trail. Casey Mattox, senior counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. Talk about Planned Parenthood's real record on women's health, among other things. But, while we're talking politics with Hillary Clinton, if you missed it yesterday, and you probably did because you probably weren't sitting home watching the Steve Harvey show in the middle of the afternoon, but if you were, you caught something extraordinary. Hillary Clinton, in talking to Steve Harvey, of course, he's the guy that got really famous when he read the wrong winner of the Miss Universe pageant, was explaining to Steve Harvey, why we need gun control, basically. She's laying out her plan again to come after your guns, laying out the plan again as to why we need more gun control in America. She made an interesting observation, to say the least. Roll it.
92% of the American people agree with what I said and what you've talked about, right. And 85% of gun owners agree with that. So we've got to say to the gun lobby, you know what? There is a constitutional right for people to own guns, but there's also a constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that enables us to have a safe country where we are able to protect our children and others from this senseless gun violence. So,
absolutely, except that it's not there. All right, civics class. Where is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness actually found? That's right, the Declaration of Independence. It's a position paper. It's a statement of where we want to be, but it has nothing to do with constitutional rights. And isn't it interesting how she wants to take away your guns and then talks about protecting your children? It's an interesting position to take, Mrs. Clinton. Make no mistake, these folks are coming after your guns. They are, they've started down that road now. They've got, they think, a little bit of momentum behind them. And unless you vote this fall for somebody other than Hillary Clinton, you can think about the possible vacancy on the Supreme Court. Possible, I say, because the Obama administration now floating the possibility of putting a Republican nominee up, which would make it, well, it's a good political move for the president. Puts it in play. But they're talking about Governor Sandoval, who is the governor of Nevada, former justice himself, former judge. But he is a Republican governor, Brian Sandoval. And that test balloon is floating around out there. Whether it actually his name gets put up or not, who knows? But the nomination of a Republican clearly would be seen as an attempt by Obama to break the Senate Republican blockade of any of his choices. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell sticking to his gun, saying that the 54-member GOP caucus is opposed to holding confirmation hearings or to vote on Obama's pick, insisting that the choice rests with the next president. The White House's consideration of Sandoval was first reported by the Washington Post and the Associated Press, the Post reporting that Senate Republicans reaffirmed their vow to not consider any Obama nominee, regardless of party affiliation. It's not about personality, said John Cornyn, Senator of Texas. Whoever replaces Scalia will be determined by whoever wins the presidency in the fall. Sandoval's communications director, by the way. And I don't know much about this guy. Heard his name, seen him out there, don't have any idea what he'd be like. He's 52 years old. He is Nevada's first Hispanic governor, as if that matters. Was the state's first Hispanic federal judge, as if that matters. He supports abortion, a position that might assuage some Democratic voters nervous about the nomination of a Republican, but liberal groups swiftly came out against the idea, too. Nominating Sandoval to the Supreme Court would not only prevent grassroots organizations like Democracy for America from supporting the president in this nomination fight, it could lead us to actively encouraging Senate Democrats to oppose his appointment. He is limited to 2 terms as a term limit there in Nevada. He would expire in 2019. He announced last year that he would not seek Harry Reid's seat as the Senate, something he'd be a strong favorite to get. We're just getting warmed up. It's Thursday on the Steve Gruber Show, 888-900-9966. If you're snowbound, tell me about it. We'll be right back.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
I know you've deceived me, now here's a
Well, settle in with another cup of coffee. If you're behind the wheel, just be careful. Keep your eyes up. Keep the focus, my friend. All right, there you go. National Journal senior political columnist Ron Fournier, or Fournier, I guess it's pronounced Fournier, argued that if Democratic presidential candidate former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was being honest in her claims regarding what she said in her Wall Street Journal speeches, she would have released them. So I suspect she's not telling the truth, he said yesterday morning on MSNBC's Morning Joe. Fournier said that the problem with Hillary saying she'll release the transcripts of her paid Wall Street speeches when Republicans do is she told the American public that when I gave those speeches, I took on Wall Street. I told them what they've got to do, that they've got to do it better. So if that was true, she would have released them, okay? So I suspect she's not telling the truth. This is an era of transparency. The public has a right to know. Release it. And when she says, why should I do it? Everybody else does. Because, Madam Secretary, you want to be president. Because supposedly you're better than the Republican Party. Are you not better than the Republican Party? Is that the standard now? You're only going to be as good as those you tell everyone is evil? You're only as good as the evil Republicans? But no, you say you're going to be better. So, Mrs. Clinton, be better. Or continue on. See, she hasn't done the right thing. And she keeps parading around telling everybody how she's taken on Wall Street. Well, she's taken in their checks. She's taken their money. I don't see that she's taking on Wall Street. And she's certainly not being transparent here. She's not being forthcoming and honest, that's for sure. Now, here's something for you. China has warned the United States. China warning us not to adopt punitive currency policies that could disrupt United States-Chinese relationships after Donald Trump's win in the Nevada caucus. A foreign ministry spokesman told reporters in Beijing that we are following with interest the U.S. presidential election. Asked about China's response to a possible Trump presidency and his announced plan to punish China for currency manipulation with a tax on Chinese goods. Since it belongs to the domestic affair of the U.S., I'm not going to make comments on specific remarks by the relevant candidate. But I want to stress that China and the U.S., as the world's developing and developed countries, shoulder major responsibilities in safeguarding world peace, stability, and security, and driving world development. The sustained, sound, and steady growth of China's U.S. relations serves the fundamental and long-term interest of the two countries and benefits the world. They're basically threatening us that if Donald Trump actually stops America from getting screwed, they're going to be upset. What does that tell you? It tells you that he's on the right path. And Donald Trump, by the way, recording his third big victory in a row this week in winning. He's now won, let's see, in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. Apparently, he can win all over the country with very different kinds of electorates. He won with evangelicals in South Carolina, much to the surprise of Ted Cruz's campaign. They thought they had that locked up. He won with the majority of Hispanics in Nevada, much to the surprise of both Cruz and Marco Rubio, both of whom are Hispanic. The Hispanic support also blows out of the water the notion that Trump's comments about illegal aliens would somehow permanently turn that important voting bloc against him. Just isn't true, apparently. Jorge Ramos, the bombastic anchor of Univision, did his level best on numerous occasions to destroy Trump with Hispanic voters. It has failed. Taking to the podium after his new Nevada win, Trump was clear. We won with the evangelicals. We won with the young. We won with the old. We won with the highly educated. We won with the poorly educated. I love the poorly educated, he said. And, of course, that's been carried around everywhere. If you vote for Trump, you're dumb. Yeah, okay. So the big knock on Trump from the right is that he is not a real conservative and would be dangerous for America. He is clearly more conservative than Barack Obama, I can tell you that. You know that. And he's obviously a big concern to the left and to the mainstream media and to China. This man scares the daylights out of everybody. But the big knock on him is he's not conservative enough. So let's take a quick look at some of his policies. On border security, Trump says it's time to close the border, enforce the laws we already have on the books, and make sure we're safe. That sounds pretty conservative to me. On national security, Trump says it's time to make sure the U.S. military is rebuilt to a place where nobody wants to mess with us. And if they do, they will be smashed without mercy. That also sounds pretty conservative to me. Trump says protecting America from predatory trade practices like that we were just discussing with China and making sure U.S. workers, specifically the middle class, are protected is critical. He's a vocal critic of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a deal he says will cost Americans millions of jobs. By the way, Republican support full and free trade is not a great deal for us generally, and it's a bit confusing. We're the only country, it seems, that does not protect our workers from cheap imports. And I would think protecting American workers is conservative as well. And what about gun control? Hillary Clinton was talking about that a moment ago. What about it? Well, Donald Trump and his two sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, all NRA members, life members. What else would you want to know about that? That's about as conservative as you can possibly be. But, Steve, he was a Democrat once and donated to people like Hillary Clinton. And so what? Lots of folks have changed political parties over the years. Hillary Clinton, for example, was a Republican, if you didn't remember. In fact, Hillary found evidence of voter fraud against presidential candidate Richard Nixon while working for Republicans in 1960. She campaigned openly for Barry Goldwater in 1964 as head of the Young Republicans at her college. Do you think she qualifies as a Republican today? And Bernie Sanders was once actually a Democrat. That's, of course, before deciding Joseph Stalin's view of the world should be his as well, and he became an outright socialist. So is Donald Trump conservative enough? I don't know. He's for real borders, national security, and economic security as well. Call me crazy, but that sounds reasonably conservative to me. I mean, if you're going to find knocks on him because he's erratic or he's vulgar or something, fine. But let's just focus this conversation a little bit more as it looks ever more likely he could be the GOP nominee. 25 after on a Thursday, it's the Steve Gruber Show.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
Shout it, shout it, shout it out loud. Shout it, shout it, shout it out loud.
All right, welcome back to it. It's Thursday. Heavy storms across the country. A lot of tornadoes south and east of us in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, tornadoes, and to the south more. Here, of course, we're getting buried in snow, and it continues now. These some whiteout conditions, almost blizzard-like conditions in some areas since the storm began yesterday morning. It will continue until mid-afternoon today, so, hunker down, get an extra cup of coffee, and sit down with me as I have a conversation with my good friend, Pastor Aubrey Shines, everybody. There he is. Welcome back.
Hey, always great being with you. Thanks for having me, Steve.
It's not snowing in Florida.
I assure you it's not.
Yeah, glory be to that, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I was seeing here recently where Ben Carson, who was raised in, inner city Detroit by a single mother, him and his brother, she was very strict about one thing in particular, that was education. But he grew up in the project type world of Detroit, segregated Detroit, and, before the Enlightenment, I guess, of desegregation and the civil rights movement, if you will. And he says that President Obama doesn't understand that at all. He says President Obama was raised white, if you will, in Indonesia and elsewhere, and doesn't understand black America at all. Do you think that's a fair criticism?
I think certainly Dr. Carson could have worded that just a little different. I understand what he means, though, because what Obama does, he tries to pander to those individuals that were raised that way, and I'm going to use a little urban language here because it gives them street cred. and because of it, he tries to say, well, look, I really understand. Well, I'm not saying that Obama can't understand those who have been raised in an environment. But, Steve, that's like you and I saying to our mom or sister, hey, you went through that labor, and I can tell you I know what that really feels like. No, we really don't, because there's a lot of us, Steve, that were not raised, including myself, on any type of entitlement. I had a dad who was super. He passed away, but a great businessman, great entrepreneur, put his dad, his brothers in business, and we did quite well. And there was a mom in the house, and there was education, and there was no entitlements that were there. So what Carson is implying, what a lot of blacks actually imply, that you really don't understand the black experience. Well, that's kind of myopic, because that says if I didn't come underneath that umbrella, Steve, some kind of way, what? Am I not black? Are you not white because you were not raised like Donald Trump with $10 billion? I don't think so. I don't think that takes away your ethnicity at all.
I think that's green, actually. Greenbacks, yeah. I
wouldn't mind being raised by that way, by the way. If I could do it all over again, that $10 billion would have been pretty cool, I think.
Well, it gives you options. I don't know. To be honest with you, people that have a lot of money have as many problems as those that don't. They're just different problems.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you see that all the time. So let me ask you
absolutely.
this. When you look at the campaign as it rolls out, and, there's a lot of talk about race, usually from the media. If we stop talking about race the way we do, maybe we wouldn't have to, consider race as often. But they want to make it part of the conversation, always they being the media. You talk about how Donald Trump claimed the Hispanic vote in Nevada, but he's also, which the media, by the way, said could never happen. Donald Trump could never, attract Hispanic voters because he told people that there were racists or rapists and killers that came across the Mexican border. Well, he took 47% of the Hispanic vote in Nevada in the Republican caucus. He's going to run stronger among African Americans, I believe, than the media thinks is possible. Because I think he makes inroads because he makes economic sense to people.
Exactly. And that's why, and listen, let's be candid, people are angry. Obama has created an environment where people they're absolutely just incensed because this guy has, for instance, religious liberties. They've been stripped away, not just here, but you look at the Yiddies in the Middle East and the little Christian girls that are just being raped and just tortured and sold into sex slaves. We don't hear anything about that from this administration yet. There's never been an Islamic cause that we don't hear anything about. And we can go down the line. This guy has been such a racial divisive president that this is why we do hear about race. This is why we're just outraged in America. And here comes Donald Trump. And look, Ted Cruz is my guy. And let me just be very, very candid. At the same time, I identify with those who are angry because this president has set a course that has been the most divisive course, maybe outside of Woodrow Wilson or Stevenson, that we've ever seen even in history. And as a result of it, Steve, people are angry, and we want to be able to say things that, I believe in traditional marriage, and it doesn't make me homophobic, but we can't even talk this way any longer because of this failed, feckless president. Therefore, you have a Trump that is just echoing with almost and resonating with everyone in America because they're identifying with someone. Just be bombastic, be loud, and you know what? You may even get his vote. And this is why these guys are resonating like this.
Well, this is why he is, they can say what they want. They being the mainstream anything in this country, Democratic, Republican, doesn't matter. They all fear Donald Trump. They've told us since June of last year he could not be elected. I know you're a Cruz guy, but that window is starting to close.
Oh, yeah, I agree. He better hit it out of the park Super Tuesday, that's for sure, or it's over.
Yeah, pretty much. And it looks like he could pull off Texas.
Yeah.
But one primary win's not going to be enough to propel him either. But we'll see what happens. Let me ask you this, and we got about 20 seconds here, Pastor. If it is Trump, are you there for him?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, anyone other than the Burn man and Hillary, who should be in prison, Clinton.
No, that pretty much covers it. Pastor Aubrey Shines founded Glory to Glory Ministries. He's in Florida, in Tampa, and elsewhere. And it's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, my friend. Keep your finger on the pulse.
Hey, I'll do it, Steve. Always great being with you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, everybody. Aubrey Shines here on the program on a Thursday. And it's not snowing, by the way, in Florida. He let us know that. This part of the program brought to you by the Michigan 529 programs, making sure your kids and grandkids get the education they need. To learn more, go to savewithmi529.com, savewithmi529.com. We'll be right back.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it off.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Well, digging through the biggest snow event of the year for southern Michigan. Yeah, it's the biggest snow event of the year this year so far for many, and it's continuing at this hour. If you don't need to go out, don't. Just sit down with a cup of coffee and enjoy what you're doing right now. If you're out, well, be careful out there. 10 and 2, my friend, 10 and 2. Drive defensively. Hey, whatever happened to that term? That used to be the term all the time when I was growing up. Drive defensively. Look out for the idiot next to you. Not worried about the way I drive. Worry about the way everybody else is driving. Gallup has done a poll on words commonly associated with presidential candidates. Yeah, you'll like this. The 2 words most commonly associated with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. You're right. You got them. Socialist and some variation of liar. Bernie Sanders, the socialist. Bernie, the socialist. And Clinton's name, dishonest liar, don't trust her, poor character. Her only saving grace is she's also seen as capable and experienced. Overall, just 29% of Americans have a positive view of Hillary Clinton. 29%. And you watch the rebranding effort from Donald Trump when he comes forward. He's a best-selling author and the number 1 rated guy on TV for a reason. He can brand. Can he win an election? I don't know. Is he going to win the Republican nomination? I don't know that either. But as everybody knows, if Cruz and Rubio don't get it into gear soon, that window is closing. But anyhow, thought it was interesting that the Gallup poll, liar and socialist. That's a little bit of fun for you right there. Let's see here. What do we got from the great list from the Wall of Sound? Loretta Lynch was testifying before a House Appropriations Subcommittee for a hearing yesterday. Attorney General Loretta Lynch defending the government's attempts to force Apple. This story is getting people getting more emotional about this every day. The government forcing Apple to unlock the iPhone of one of the San Bernardino attackers and turn over its data. Here's what Loretta Lynch had to say before Congress yesterday. Go.
As we have made clear, the going dark problem is a very real threat to law enforcement's mission to protect public safety and ensure that criminals are caught and held accountable. It's a long-standing principle in our justice system that if an independent judge finds reason to believe that a certain item contains evidence of a crime, then that judge can authorize the government to conduct a limited search for that evidence. And if the government needs the assistance of third parties to ensure that the search is actually conducted, judges all over the country and on the Supreme Court have said that those parties must assist if it is reasonably within their power to do so. And that is what we have been asking, and we owe it to the victims and to the public whose safety we must protect to ensure that we have done everything under the law to fully investigate terrorist attacks on American soil.
Yeah, they didn't even want to call it a terrorist attack originally. Let's be honest about that. They want the master key to your phone and mine. They want the master key because once that, if that comes to pass, they have this long-standing provision of limited search and so on and so forth. We also have this long-standing provision in America, including a place in the Constitution, protection against unreasonable search and seizure. Many would say today that there's unreasonable searches going on 24 hours a day, around the clock, 7 days a week. Where do you guys come down on this, by the way? I've never asked you. The more I hear about it, the more I stand with Apple. I don't support terrorism, obviously. I think that those people should be hung by their thumbs. But the fact of the matter is, I don't side with the government on this one. I think that my iPhone, and yes, I have an iPhone, should have a certain amount of protection. Because at what point does the government level fall down to the local police officer saying, well, I have a right to look at your phone? No, you don't. Yes, I do. The court said so. I don't want a police officer walking up to one of my children saying, you have to give me your phone. No, I don't. Yes, you do. Judge said so. You know, they ruled that your phone is the property of the state, and we can look at it any time because we want to protect the children. Yeah. That's pretty frightening, don't you think? That is pretty frightening. Let's see. Also, and the phone number, by the way, if you want to chime in, do you support Apple? Do you support the government in their efforts to open up this phone? And is it just a ruse? I mean, they're forcing Apple to write a new operating system because they want a new operating system going forward. It's a lot more than just some limited search, I would say. The phone number, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Alex, not a fan of that either, by the way. He's shackled in the basement. He wants to have his phone to call out just in case of emergency. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump says that he is looking for someone political as a running mate. See, he's looking for a running mate now. And he wants somebody political, unlike himself. And if he gets the Republican nomination for president, that's what he says he's looking for. He says the main qualification he is looking for is for somebody that could also be a great president. Go.
Actually, there are some names that I've gotten to respect that are, that have been. We started off with 17. We're now down to 5. Mm-hmm. And, some of the people that I've dealt with, I do have a lot of respect for. And I like, look, the main quality that you want is somebody that can be a great president. If something happens to you, that's got to be, don't you think that's got to be number one?
Right. Exactly right.
And then I would want somebody that could help me with government. So most likely that would be a political person because I'm business and I'm very good at what I do and all of that. And I'm also very, very political. You've seen me, when you can get zoning on the west side of Manhattan to build almost 6,000 units of housing and you have to go through New York City politics, believe me, that's as tough. I don't say Israel, Palestine, but it's about as tough a deal. It's about as tough a deal. I view that as the single toughest deal. Anybody can make that deal, and we're going to give it a shot, okay? We're going to give it a shot. But a lot of good people have gone down trying to give that one a shot. But the most important thing is you have to have somebody that can be a great president. But after that, you want somebody that can help you with legislation, getting it through, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say without...
There you get the idea. Great president. Yeah, anybody can make that deal is a good deal. Did you hear the Mitt Romney thing yesterday? Saying that he believes that there's a bombshell waiting in Donald Trump's tax returns. That's why he hasn't put them out yet. It's February. It almost sounds like more Republican wishful thinking that they can find a way to derail Trump's path to the nomination. And I have respect for Mitt Romney, but that seems like a kind of a foolish statement when you don't know what's in the tax return to say, well, there must be a bombshell in there because he hasn't released it yet. Okay. It's 14 after Thursday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Feel it, feel it.
Welcome back to it on this Thursday. I just looked ahead. It's going to be in the 40s on Saturday and the 50s on Sunday. So all of this snow we're getting, and it's still coming down, it's still piling up. It is going to be one big sloppy mess come the end of the weekend. Congressman Tim Walberg joining us now. Congressman, welcome back to the program. Where are you today?
I'm here in Washington.
No, you're missing all the good fun.
Yeah, I am. I put the snowblower on my tractor earlier on this year. The last time I used it that day and haven't had a chance to use the rest of the winter. It's been kind of strange. And here I am, stuck in Washington, not able to play on the tractor.
Yeah, we finally get to catch up on our snowfall totals for the year. A big event, obviously. There's usually a lot of sloppy messes in Washington, too, but of a different sort. Anyhow, are you prepared to make your get behind a candidate here and your endorsement for president yet?
No, I'm not. I think, you know it as well as I do. You hear from your listeners, you're watching. This is a situation where the people will choose. They're going to make their decisions. They're not, for the most part, interested in what Washington elected officials are going to say on it. They're going to do their thing. That's very clear so far. So we're watching it with rapt interest as much as anybody else.
All right, here's one of the things I'd like you to weigh in on, though. We've all been watching with rapt interest. It's a good way to put it. Loretta Lynch in Washington yesterday, obviously she's there. She was testifying yesterday about this idea that that Apple should give the government the keys to this iPhone and this terrorist attack in San Bernardino. Very emotional debate it has become. People pretty evenly split on this one, Congressman. What side do you come down on? Do you come down with the government or with Apple?
I don't come down with Apple. I come down with, and it depends on what government you're talking about, to who's saying what they want to do. I think we ought to very clearly sit in a room with Apple, give them the opportunity to use the resources that they have, the ability they have to find out what is in this cell phone. It's a matter of, I believe, special interest for this country, for its security. And while we have to watch the civil liberties issue, this is one cell phone. Let them give us the information from that, lock it up again, and move on. That doesn't mean the government has to have the keys to unlock every cell phone.
Well, and that's the concern, obviously, that somehow the government ends up with the master key here. But see, what I'm understanding from reading all this, Congressman, is that the government, the United States government, asking Apple to create a different operating system. And so, therefore, in the future, it would be easier, if you will, to get into these cell phones, mine, yours, anybody's. And that's why people are concerned.
Yeah, well, I don't want that. And I would agree with people who are concerned about their civil liberties, about their privacy. That is America. That comes with risks, absolutely. But I think when you talk about the one cell phone that you want to get into, there's a way to do that without violating anyone else's civil liberties. This cell phone came from someone who, in fact, gave up civil liberties because of the attack against really society and America itself. So I think there ought to be a way to do it that will secure our First Amendment, civil rights, liberties, all the rest of that, and still be able to find information that could help us in the war on terror.
We'll see if we can find our way there. I'm skeptical of the government having that kind of access, but we don't know what the outcome is going to be yet, so we'll keep watching that. We also don't know what the outcome is going to be when it comes to closing Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The president coming out here a couple of days ago saying he is ready to send more of these terrorists maybe back to other countries. We know that some of them have returned to the battlefield. One's released during George W. Bush's administration and more recently during the Obama administration. The question then also being, where would you interrogate prisoners that were enemy combatants if they were, brought out of a war scene and brought back to the Western Hemisphere? Where would they come to American soil for interrogation? How would that work? And where do you come down on this? Paul Ryan says that Republicans are making legal preparations if the president moves further in that direction. Now, I've said for a long time, Congressman, I believe his goal here is to make an attempt somehow to give Guantanamo Bay back to the nation of Cuba. I believe that's his end game here. What do you think is going on? How do you stop it?
Well, number one, it's illegal. The president signed the law that makes it illegal to bring detainees from Guantanamo to the United States. He also signed that in the omnibus. So the law is in place, and the president must follow the law. This is his normal approach of saying one thing and doing another thing. We need to understand that, and I appreciate the Speaker taking action already to be prepared if the president becomes lawless in this area, as he has in several other areas, that we take him to court. We use legal means necessary to stop him, at the very least, to alert the American people that we have a president who refuses to abide by the law. It is the law, and I think that's the key thing, Steve, that we need to get out to the people. This isn't a political issue. This isn't a Republican-Democrat issue. This is the law of the land that no detainee will be released from Guantanamo to the United States. Most of the people in the United States in my district don't have one care in the world about Guantanamo remaining open and incarcerating these terrorists. These aren't criminals in the sense of breaking American law. These are people who are trying to defeat America. And this is a base where we ought to have them in place, and so far it's not caused a problem. Secondly, this is a military base. This is a naval base on Guantanamo that we cannot give away to a communist dictator and a rogue state like Cuba. So bottom line is that we will push back. We have Democrat and Republican support on this issue. We voted not unanimously, but overwhelmingly to make sure that this Guantanamo Bay stayed open and detainees were kept there.
So I guess, and this is key, because you're right. It's illegal what he's doing, but when has that deterred this president? I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word, because it really hasn't.
No, it hasn't in many cases, but thankfully the courts have upheld us when he's gone across the law, such as on the legal amnesty. The courts have stood with us on that. HHS mandate, they've stood with us on that so far, and we'll continue to push. The American people need to be awakened to the fact that this president disregards the law, and be very careful on who you choose for leadership down the road.
There you have it, everybody. It's Congressman Tim Walberg here on the program. It's Thursday. Thank you, Congressman.
Have a wonderful day.
Covering Michigan and the world from his bunker below the bridge. Here is Steve Gruber.
You can feel it all over. You can feel it all over, people.
Yeah, welcome back to it. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Thursday. Looks like we got pretty much all of our winter in one good shot here, majority of it anyway. It'll be gone by the weekend. It's going to be a mess. Highs in the 40s on Saturday, into the 50s on Sunday. It's going to be one big sloppy mess. Make no mistake as we go into March. And more snow on the way in the next few days. I don't think it's going to be like this, but, we'll see. The next guest here on the program is a former congressman from the state of Michigan, a Republican who was on the U.S. House Intelligence Committee, the chairman thereof, in fact. Republican Pete Hoekstra with us this morning. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, always good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, glad to have you here. You've got a couple of books you've written, The Architects of Disaster, The Destruction of Libya, and Libya Disaster. Have Western leaders learned anything? And well, I guess I'll just start with that. Have we learned anything?
Well, it's a lesson that we continue to learn, all right? And I'm not sure that we've learned it yet. You still have a number of, people in Washington and other political experts who are saying, hey, America can go into a lot of these different countries and, we can overthrow the existing government, which is not hard for the number one military power in the world to do. We can throw over these two dictators relatively easily. And then what we find is it's difficult, if not impossible, to put it back together. The reason I wrote about Libya again is, in the last week we've started bombing. We're now flying armed drones out of Sigonelli Air Base in Italy, and the situation in Libya just continues to deteriorate, and we're still talking about regime change in Syria and places like that. I'm not sure we've learned it, but it's time that we do.
Yeah, in fact, the problem now in Libya, from what I understand, and I'm sure you could chime in on this, is that ISIS is now taking up a foothold there. So when we go in and we remove a leader for whatever reason, we think it's a good idea on paper. In recent years, anyhow, it has created this vacuum where terrorist groups, be it Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, whomever it may be, go in, set up shop, recruit those that have been, marginalized or pushed out because of war to begin with, that don't have a heck of a lot to lose. And so they take up arms against, whoever's in front of them, it seems to me.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Steve. And it's even worse in Libya in that the people that we allied with to overthrow and get rid of Gaddafi, those are the same people that turned on us. Those are the same people that attacked us in Benghazi. And those are the same people that helped facilitate the shipment of arms, fighters, and ideology to Syria into what evolved into ISIS. And so, we now have two caliphates, at least two. We've got the caliphate that is made up in a territory from Syria and Iraq, and then we've got the caliphate in Libya. And, those two caliphates, they're now exporting more fighters and weapons. They're going to destabilize the Middle East. They're going to destabilize and create a bigger footprint in Africa. And both of them have ready access to Europe. It's going to be an absolute mess over the next 24 months because I don't see this administration doing anything differently. So at best, we'll have status quo for the next 10 months. But at worst, we're going to see these radical jihadist groups continue their consolidation and their growth, and they are going to have more impact in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe.
Well, in Europe, some countries there, as you know, Congressman, are now saying enough. Certain states in Germany say, we will take no more. They have basically shut down. Other countries have said, we will take no more refugees. And in fact, if you're here, we're going to push you back out because they see the problem. You know, the whole thing with the marauding groups of rapists in Cologne have certainly gotten the world's attention. Apparently, the sexual assaults and so forth in some places are up 2,000 and 3,000% in places in Europe. So they understand the risk because these people are not assimilating. They're coming in and trying to, well, it's almost a scorched earth policy when they show up. They just try to come in and take over. They don't care about assimilating. They're trying to turn it into, as you put it, I suppose, a caliphate in Europe.
Oh, no, they really are. But, Steve, they may say they're not going to take any more, but, you know, there's a city of 1 million people in Iraq. It's called Mosul. It's under the control of ISIS. And the pattern has been very clear. When efforts are made to liberate a city, it's anywhere from 25 to 40% of that community. They will flee the community before the fighting starts. And so that means in a place like Mosul in Iraq, you're going to have somewhere around perhaps 300,000 to 400,000 people, 300 to 400,000 more refugees, and there's no place for them to go. Jordan is full. The Kurdish region of Iraq is full of refugees. Turkey is being overwhelmed. Syria is being overwhelmed. And these folks, they're going to take the risk of fleeing the Middle East, and the place where they're going to go is they're going to go to Europe, and Europe is not going to have the capacity to stop them. Even though they say they don't want any more, those refugees are going to make every effort that they can to get to Europe. Europe is going to see another huge influx of refugees from the Middle East this spring and this summer. Mark my words, it's going to happen.
Well, if that happens, though, here's the thing. If that happens, at some point in places like Cologne, Germany, the people will fight back, I believe. I mean, they will not sit passively by and watch their families and their communities and their country destroyed. And at some point, it becomes, well, it might become civil war in Europe, but it will become a shooting war at some point. I mean, it's inevitable. People will not tolerate, obviously, their wives and children and so forth being raped and attacked and murdered. It won't fly.
That's why I say this summer is going to be, and the next couple of years, it's going to be a mess in Europe because the West, we've not developed strategies that are effective in confronting ISIS in the Middle East, and we're not providing the humanitarian relief to provide a safe haven that is secure for these individuals to stay in the Middle East in the refugees camps. These are miserable places, Steve, and so what you're going to find is if more and more individuals are going to take the risk of saying we're going to take this risky bet and we're going to try to get out of the Middle East because we don't see ISIS losing ground, and living in these camps is absolutely miserable. We got to do something else.
We're on the line with Republican Pete Hoekstra, former chairman of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee. About 30 seconds for this next answer. What about Gitmo? The president says he's ready to close it. Paul Ryan says that's not going to happen. What do you think is going to happen?
He's not going to move He's not going to close Gitmo by moving the remaining prisoners to the United States. The only way he closes Gitmo is if he takes the 90-some people that are in Gitmo and he releases them and ships them around the world. But those folks are not coming to the U.S.
Well, that's the law that he signed, if I'm not mistaken.
That's exactly right. He has no legal means to ship those people into the U.S. So he either breaks the law or he releases these prisoners somewhere else in the world.
All right, Pete Hoekstra, hold the thought right there because we want to take a break real quickly, and then we want to come back and talk presidential politics, the United States versus Apple, what's going on with China building its own islands and putting in fighter jets. So much to talk about with Pete Hoekstra, former chair of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee, on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, welcome back to it. It's 45 after the hour on this Thursday. We have former Congressman Pete Hoekstra with us, Republican from Michigan, who was the chairman of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee. And before we go any further here, sir, let's talk about your your focus this year for a candidate for president of the United States. I know you have somebody that you like. Tell me about that. Who and why?
Yeah, no, I'm supporting John Kasich, the governor of the state of Ohio. I served with John in Congress in the 1990s when John was chairman of the Budget Committee. I went to Washington, and I was talking about balancing the budget and those types of things, and some of my friends, back home said, "Hey, Pete, don't embarrass yourself. Don't talk about balancing the budget. It's not going to happen." I got to Washington, I ran into John Kasich, and John Kasich was the architect of balancing the budget. We actually got there. We restrained spending. We cut taxes. There was economic growth. We reformed welfare. Again, cost savings and a way to enhance the quality of that program. And John's got the maturity. He's got the background. This is a guy that has delivered results both in Washington and in the state of Ohio. He's got private sector background. He knows how to work the swamp in Washington and actually get things done in a positive way.
I keep hearing it being referred to as a swamp. It just seems so appropriate to me in so many ways, the swamp in Washington. But okay, in fairness, though, he came in second in New Hampshire. He's showing strong in Ohio, not winning, though. Donald Trump's still leading there. What's it really going to take? Donald Trump has Big Mo. I mean, he's got momentum. And in this game, that's half the battle some days.
No, it really is. And we've seen a number of shifts in momentum as we've gone through this election cycle. Jeb Bush had it, he had it a year ago when people thought he was the presumptive nominee. He raked in, over $130 million, and people said this is going to be an unstoppable machine. We had Carson, who had momentum for a while. We've had other people who've come out, and I think now as the field is narrowed, as people tonight look at this debate, they're going to be able to take a very, very good look at perhaps the most accomplished person from a political standpoint on the stage tonight, which will be Governor Kasich. There's other people on that stage who've got accomplishments in their own rights and their own areas of expertise, but this has been a very strange election cycle.
It has.
And we're hoping that, and we're working hard to get John the momentum that he needs in Michigan for March 8th.
And, of course, that's the primary here in Michigan right after Super Tuesday and before the Ides of March. But if Donald Trump stays on this path, though, through the middle of March, the Ides of March, then it would seem to me he is going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. And so let me ask you this before we move on to some other topics. Can you support Donald Trump if he is the eventual nominee?
Yeah, I can support Donald Trump as the eventual nominee. There's, as there are with every candidate, there's things you like about him, there's things you don't like about him. But ultimately, I can support Donald Trump, absolutely.
The knock on, before I leave Kasich, though, and John Kasich, I've known for years. I lived in Columbus, Ohio back in the 90s working for NBC News, and I had the opportunity to interview him and talk to him on several different occasions. Because he worked his district was right on the north side of Columbus and extending out from there. But the big knock on John Kasich is that he is not conservative enough. He took Obamacare into his state, among other things. And that seems to be the litmus test for Republicans. Who's conservative enough? Who can, kick the Democrats right in the teeth type thing? What do you respond when you hear things like that? What do you say to people?
Well, what I say is take a look at John's track record. John, when he was in Congress, like I talked about, in the 90s, we cut taxes, we reformed welfare, we balanced the budget. Those are three of the pillars of conservatism today. To have a balanced budget, to reform wasteful government spending in Washington, to cut taxes and grow the economy. John did all of those things, and America benefited. So John is a successful conservative. There's other people that can go out and say that they're more conservative and we voted against everything, but they don't have a record of accomplishment. A conservative, you have to be able to govern, and John has done that. You take a look at Ohio. He turned an $8 billion deficit into a $2 billion surplus. He took an economy that was suffering as badly as Michigan and created an environment where the private sector has created 400,000 jobs. The difference here is, sure, others can say we've got more conservative voting records, but they don't have a record of accomplishment and actually getting things done. And John has done that both in Columbus and he's done that in Washington.
All right, so real quickly, I think he is well positioned to be a VP pick as well, which I think would be an interesting choice because of all the people that Trump has picked fights with, John Kasich isn't one of them. In fact, a couple of debates ago, he looked at him a couple different times and says, I like that guy. Seriously. So, you look at who could Donald Trump pick, and he said yesterday he would pick somebody with a lot of government experience that knows how to work the government strings, basically, because he doesn't. So that would be, and let's be honest, you got to have Ohio. But quickly before we let you go here, Pete Hoekstra on the line with us. All right, let's talk about the federal government versus Apple. Where do you come down on this one about opening up this smartphone to give the government access to the information that was left behind by a terrorist?
I tend to line up with Apple on this. I don't think you can have the federal government forcing a company to give up its intellectual property. Right now, we all want secure databases. Giving up its intellectual property to the government so that they can hack into systems.
Yeah. I agree with you on that one. You and I are going to come down on the same side on that one. As much as I detest terrorism and I think they should have all the tools available, being able to access your phone and mine, not a good idea. Okay, real quickly before we go, where can they find the books? Architects of Disaster and The Libya Disaster, both about Libya. Where can they find the books?
Yeah, it's The Architects of Disaster, The Destruction of Libya. It's one book. It's available on Amazon.com.
All right, Amazon.com. Pete Hoekstra, always a great conversation and very enlightening. Thank you, sir.
Hey, always good to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
There you have it. Former Congressman Pete Hoekstra, former chairman of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee. This guy, he just knows so much. We can talk to him for hours, literally. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it off.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Welcome to it. It's Thursday. The snow should come to an end sometime this afternoon. Biggest snow event for southern Michigan so far this year. Be careful out there and call ahead if you've got someplace you need to be and plans you need to make. I'm sitting here looking through a couple of different stories. I'm trying to figure out which way to go, but I cannot help myself. I cannot turn my eyes away from two headlines I found. Both, I guess, from a website called the Libertarian Republic. It's an interesting website. But the headline, Michigan creates safe space for students afraid of debate on feminism. A student center for gay, bisexual, and transgender students at the University of Michigan created a safe space this week to protect students frightened by an approaching debate on the subject, does feminism have a free speech problem? Well, gee, if you create a safe space, isn't that kind of answer the question? Don't these things kind of go hand in hand? We recognize that the rhetoric of the speakers featured in this event is incredibly harmful to many members of our campus community, says the announcement by Michigan Spectrum Student Center. Really? Somebody having a different opinion than you is harmful to students? Listen, snowflake. The free exchange of ideas is what America was founded on in large part. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the founding principle of the Bill of Rights is free speech. Which brings me to another article by Ben Ramanauskas. Ben Ramanauskas wrote this, and I want to share this with you because I think it's fairly enlightening. There's been this disturbing trend in recent years for student leaders at universities in the United States and the United Kingdom to silence views with which they do not agree. This silencing of dissenting voices by supposedly liberal student union leaders is one of the most illiberal things imaginable. Freedom of speech is the cornerstone of any democracy and is absolutely essential for the flourishing of individual liberty. It is enshrined in legal systems of all freedom-loving countries and underpins all other rights. That is why it is at the very heart of important documents such as the Constitution of the United States and the European Convention on Human Rights. The illiberal student union leaders who seek to silence speakers with whom they disagree would do well to remember the word of Beatrice Evelyn Hall, often misattributed to Voltaire. I do not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. This curtailment of free speech has led to further bizarre and troubling developments. For example, the primacy of freedom of speech has been usurped by freedom from speech. There is now a view among student union leaders that students have a right to a freedom from speech which they do not agree or with which they find offensive. Ooh, I'm offended. I'm offended. You can't say that. I don't like it. I'm going to my safe space right now, and you can't stop me. Due to the rise in popularity of personality politics, some students are increasingly unable to cope with arguments which differ from their own views and opinions. They conflate their personalities and their beliefs so that any criticism of what they believe becomes, in their small minds, an attack on their very being. He insulted me. I need my safe space. As a result, many universities have banned guest speakers, removed topics from the curriculum, lest a student encounter an argument which differs from their very own way of thinking, and they'll be forced to re-examine their worldview. God forbid somebody brings a different idea to the table you would actually have to consider. I don't like it. I want my safe space. Really? Grow up, Buttercup. Furthermore, universities are facing increasing pressure to provide so-called safe spaces on campus. The purpose of these safe spaces is to provide students who somehow happen to encounter a viewpoint different from their own, a place where they can be free from anyone, expounding views different from their own, where their own views and opinions can be reinforced. This is not unlike a child who, after having a nightmare, runs to his parents' bedroom to be comforted and reassured that there is no such thing as monsters. This curtailment of free speech means that our universities are at risk of turning out students who believe there is only one way of thinking and who lack the will and the ability to analyze and critique differing views and viewpoints. This is not only a tragedy in and of itself, but also has potentially terrifying consequences for society as a whole. For example, if our universities are producing graduates who have been taught that theirs is the only right way to think, and that those that disagree with them are bigoted and dangerous, how are they going to behave in their professional lives and business, academics, the arts, and of course politics? We will find ourselves in a world run by closed-minded people who believe that the only way to deal with dissension is to crush it. Welcome to the new left. However, the most disturbing trend within this movement is the desire to rewrite and airbrush history. This new trend has been recently exemplified by the Rhodes Must Fall campaign, in which an Oxonian cabal has called for the removal of a statue of Cecil Rhodes, the 19th century imperialist from Oriel College, Oxford. These students claim that due to Rhodes' links to colonialism in the 19th century, the statue is symbolic of the oppression of minorities within society and that it is a form of violence against them. A statue is a violence against them. As a result, they argue the statue of Rhodes must be removed. Many of the students involved in this campaign have directly benefited as a result of Rhodes' largesse and have been able to attend the University of Oxford as a result. That doesn't matter, though. This type of action is becoming increasingly popular on campuses in the United States and the United Kingdom. For example, there's a craze on college campuses to remove statues and rename buildings associated with people who did great things, but who also held views which, by today's standards, are unacceptable. The implication is that the great acts accomplished by those in the past should be overlooked and even expunged from history just because some of their viewpoints and actions were unacceptable according to the standards of a group of elite Western students. Welcome to 1984. I currently sit in a coffee shop overlooking Senate Square in Helsinki, Finland. At the very center of the square and covered in snow stands the statue of Tsar Alexander II. One might have expected the Finnish people to demand the removal of the statue. However, they have rightly grasped that history is complex and that a statue erected in 1894 of a czar of a foreign nation who was coronated in 1855 is not, in 2016, necessarily an endorsement of everything that he and his Imperial Russia did. Rather, it is a reminder of the complexities of Finland's history and its relationship with Russia. The craze for renaming buildings and removing statues of people who held views that differ from our own standards is a blatant attempt to rewrite and airbrush history. It is true Cecil Rhodes committed terrible acts, but he also did wonderful things. History is a complex thing. Whitewashing history and brainwashing students is no way to correct any of these things. But it's a safe space. I don't feel right. Shut up. Who raised you anyway? A bunch of wimps? Thursday at the Steve Gruber Show.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Welcome back to it. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Thursday. The hotline number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. You can also check in at stevegruber.com to find out more. Our next guest, Casey Mattox, Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom, one of the nation's foremost legal organizations advocating for life and religious liberty, and taking exception to some Donald Trump statements with Chucky Todd on Meet the Press. Casey, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So, all right, Donald Trump seems to think that Planned Parenthood is okay in some regards. Obviously, that doesn't sit well with a lot of folks. What are your thoughts?
You know, it's really troubling. He really echoed there the views of a lot of abortion proponents who try to pretend that Planned Parenthood is this necessary provider, and it's just not true. You know, there are about 12,000 different federally qualified health centers and rural health clinics across the country. There's 187,000 Medicaid providers across the country. There are 665 Planned Parenthood. The bottom line is we don't need Planned Parenthood, let alone the fact that they are the nation's largest abortionists with, you know, almost 1,300,000 every year.
In some places, it would be argued, and I'm going to take the devil's advocate position here. In some places, it would be argued that the Planned Parenthood clinic is the only one available for some distance, making it available to people of lower income, and therefore taking it away would create a hardship for people. Not talking about abortion specifically, but other possible treatments. You take exception to that.
We do, and we've actually put together a website that I would direct people to. It's getyourcare.org. And what we did was basically just to take the known information from the federal government. This is not, coming from us. This is from the federal government about where all the federally qualified health centers, rural health clinics, and other types of community health centers are. And we put those on a map that people can zoom into their locality and find where they are. And the bottom line is there just is no need for Planned Parenthood. You have these places all over the country, in communities all over the country. They're almost evenly spaced. Whereas Planned Parenthood, of course, will typically locate where they can make the profit. These are places that are locating so that they can actually reach out and provide care to more people. So it's really, sort of disappointing, I guess, to hear a Republican presidential candidate echoing the views that you would expect to be hearing here coming from Cecile Richardson. As a matter of fact, she thanked him yesterday on TV. I don't know if you noticed that. For his kind comments about Planned Parenthood.
You see, it's that reason right there, in my estimation, that Donald Trump is building an alliance that will, more likely than not, give him a shot at the White House, because he is going to attract Democrats with that sort of a conversation. Now, let me ask you this, Casey. With comments like this, how much impact do you think it has in a fall election? Because my guess is as important of an issue as Planned Parenthood is to so many, the economy, our debt, and changing direction from where we are, and not having Hillary Clinton as president will be overriding factors that will get people to vote for Donald Trump, even if he says things just like this.
Well, certainly, Trump has managed to keep support while saying a lot of things that I think should concern a lot of people on the life side and on the religious liberty side and others. But I think the bottom line is whatever happens electorally, truth still is truth. And the idea of promoting Planned Parenthood as some necessary provider, that's exactly why it's been difficult to defund Planned Parenthood, is because the lingering lie among so many in Washington, D.C., that Planned Parenthood is necessary. So here's someone who is supposedly the person who's going to come in from the outside and change things up, parroting the line that has actually kept Planned Parenthood receiving over $500 million of our taxpayer dollars every year, is just really disappointing.
We're on the line with Casey Mattox, Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom, discussing Planned Parenthood funding and comments from Donald Trump. But Casey, the bad news for you is simply this. If you went out and surveyed, pick your number, of American voters, I don't believe the Planned Parenthood is going to make the top 5. It might not make the top 10. It is an important issue to so many. To me, to you, I understand that. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the economy, security here at home, security abroad, where America stands in the world. These things will all be more important to most folks. So I don't know that Planned Parenthood is going to steer a lot of votes. I understand your angst, I suppose. But what can you do to change it? And I guess you can't find out until you had somebody else. And I think that would be true for Cruz or Rubio or Kasich. I don't think it'd be a top priority for them either. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think what we have established is we actually got a bill through Congress that would have defunded Planned Parenthood. We're a vote short in the White House, getting a signature on that bill to defund Planned Parenthood. And that was actually quite a victory this fall. As frustrating as it was watching Planned Parenthood largely escape, without Congress actually being able to defund them, we did get the bill through that requires a president's vote. So it's important how that president views this question. And, so I think we really are closer than people realize to being able to free American taxpayers from working every day to support Planned Parenthood. And that's why I think it really matters. Now, no doubt there are many issues that are going to be of concern, but this one is of paramount concern to a lot of people, and they're going to have a difficult time voting for someone who is even not only
and that's what I would have thought
on the Planned Parenthood question, but is actually supportive of Planned Parenthood and giving them positive comments.
I would have thought that, except for the way the evangelical vote went in South Carolina for Trump in his favor. So I guess we'll keep an eye on it, Casey. But I think that unless there's a dramatic shakeup and before the Ides of March, about the 15th of March, I don't think that there's going to be anybody that can stop Trump. And so people are going to need to learn to figure out if they can live with it or they can't. I'll give you 15 seconds for the last word.
Sure. Well, I think there's still a lot of time between now and the end of this election cycle. But if you're interested in more on the Planned Parenthood question, I would encourage people to go to adflegal.org. That's our website, and you can find more about what we're doing on the Planned Parenthood front and more about the organization itself.
adflegal.org. adflegal.org. Casey Mattox, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
You see it all around you. Good loving gone bad.
And welcome to it. Thursday here. Still some work to be done before the program comes to a close today, so glad you're dialing it in. If you'd like to join the conversation, it's 888-900-9966. We'll open the mics here in just a few minutes. Give me a snow report wherever you are. That'd be great. Our next guest, Joe Castleberry, president of Northwest University, author of The New Pilgrims, How Immigrants Are Renewing America's Faith and Values. With Jeb Bush gone, establishment Republicans are trying to bully Marco Rubio, but not working out so well. In Nevada, Hispanics turned out for Donald Trump en masse, more than they did for Rubio or Cruz or anybody else for that matter. Joseph Castleberry, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
All right, so where is Northwest University, just so the folks know?
Yeah, Northwest is just outside of Seattle in Washington State, in the town of Kirkland. It's a beautiful town with Lake Washington and the Olympic Mountains in the background, and it is one of the most beautiful small towns in America.
Well, there you have it, and thank you for sharing. Okay, so in Nevada this week, the Hispanics gave Donald Trump 47% of the vote, just like he said they would. And media pundits and critics said that'll never happen. He will never get Hispanic support, and yet he did. Now the establishment Republicans are lining up behind Marco Rubio, hoping that he can attract the Hispanics. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, both of Cuban descent, both Hispanic, collected very little in that regard. So what do you think's happening here?
Well, I think you have laid it out pretty well. Establishment Republicans are trying to get behind Rubio. I'm behind him myself, and Cruz is hanging in there. He's still leading in the polls in Texas. He doesn't see any reason to get out of the race until, at least for the moment, he believes he can win Texas, and he believes he can catch some steam and take the lead. It's going to be very difficult for him to do that. I think as long as everyone who's currently in the race stays in the race, it looks like a walk-in for Donald Trump. But the race isn't over yet. That's why we have the votes. That's why we have the caucuses and the primaries. And anything can still happen because this is a crazy election. You just really never know what's going to happen.
What I've noticed, though, is that the enthusiasm level for Trump, his people don't move. They're there to stay, and it includes Republicans and Democrats. It includes white folks and black folks and Hispanics and evangelicals. Donald Trump's now up to 46%. This whole notion that somehow if, Jeb Bush gets out and Trump will get none of those voters, not true. He picked up, so he had to have. If Marco or Cruz get out, he'll pick up some of those votes. It's inevitable.
Yeah. Well, inevitable is a little too far, but he's got the advantage. There's no question about that. And still, like I said, anything can still happen. And we've seen. I keep thinking. I remember in 1968. I was 8 years old. I had become a political junkie at age 6, and I watched that Democratic race for the presidency in '68 with avid interest. And man, we had so many twists and turns in the process. Even from this time of the year until the end of the year, that was a crazy election year, and we just don't know what's going to happen. There are all kinds of wild card things that could throw this election in a different direction. So we're going to have to walk it out. And the worst thing Trump could do politically is to assume that he's got it made. He's already starting to coast. He's avoiding the debates. He doesn't want to face Megyn Kelly because she's she doesn't like him, or he's afraid of her, doesn't want to get her in front of her.
None of that matters, though. None of that really matters. The fact of the matter is he's winning. He's winning big. He's steamrolling right now, and we've got Super Tuesday coming.
He's got it made, and it's the tortoise and the hare story. That's not a safe political strategy just to lay back and assume you've got it. But you're right. He has the advantage, and if he doesn't mess up, and if circumstances don't conspire against him, he has a very strong possibility of winning the nomination. But it isn't over yet, and voters should assume that it's over.
Well, and despite what he said, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here for Donald Trump, he's not anti-immigrant. He's anti-open, broken border. He's anti-illegal aliens running across the border unchecked, and unknown to us. He's
proven he loves immigrants. He's married 2 of them. And as a matter of fact, if you're an immigrant and you're a knockout, drop-dead, gorgeous woman, he loves you. But, if you're an agricultural worker who's come here desperate and is trying to make a future for your family, he may not love you quite as much.
Well, they broke the law, Joe. I mean, they broke the law to come here.
Well, they had a lot of help in breaking the law, Stephen. They didn't just come by themselves. The American employers have hired them and have needed them.
So it's okay
in the
then.
Agricultural sector.
So it's okay then that they break the law.
No, it's the fact. It's not okay to break the law, but we are complicit in their breaking of the law, and we've got to.
I'm not complicit.
We, the American people.
I'm not complicit.
Well, we're all complicit.
No, we're not.
We have not demanded that our legislators fix the laws, and we haven't demanded the president.
The laws, hold on.
enforce
See,
them.
there's the misconception. And I just got to stop you because that's the misconception, Joe. And you and I might get along on a lot of things, but the laws are not broken. The laws are not being enforced. The laws are perfectly fine. I know many people that came to this country from other nations as immigrants legally, from Israel, from Eastern Europe, from elsewhere, that are here legally, and they followed the rules. There's nothing wrong with the immigration system. We're not enforcing it. If they were forced to follow the laws and fill out the forms and do background checks on criminal history and health history and the things that are mandated by law, put forth by Congress, we wouldn't have this issue. There is no broken system.
You haven't seen, like I have, the long lines of people trying to get into the American embassy to apply for a visa that they can't get. And we do not allow enough workers in to harvest our crops.
So
and
wait. So hold on. So you're telling me the system is broken because the line's too long? Come on.
You can't get here by the legal means.
Oh,
and
please.
Even now, we're not allowing enough agricultural workers in to bring in the crops.
Really? Because the last time I was at the supermarket, the shelves were full and the prices were low.
Yeah, that's because we've got a lot of
because we're breaking the law. All right,
immigrants working
maybe
in the
not.
fields right now.
Fact of the matter is, there's a way to do it. There's a legal way to do it. And this whole notion that somehow the line's too long, that's the reason the system's broken because the line's too long. Come on, Joe.
Well, there is a way to do it, but we're not doing it that way. I can just tell you, last year we had crops and fruit rotting on the ground in Washington because there wasn't enough labor here to harvest it, because net immigration in the United States is down in the last 5 years by a strong margin. And our system as it stands right now does not let enough temporary workers come in to harvest.
You don't have
crops.
teenagers in the state of Washington? What are they too all self-important and self-entitled? They sit on the couch. They can't go pick apples and make money? What? Because that's what I did when I was 14 and 15. I picked fruit for money. You got too many self-entitled kids in Washington?
Round them up and send them out there? You're going to force their parents?
No, my point is, do we really need immigrant labor, or do we need a better mindset for millennials? That's my question. Joe Castleberry, president of Northwestern University. Good conversation. Where can people find out more about you and what you write?
On my website, josephcastleberry.com, or in the book, The New Pilgrim.
There you have it, Joe. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Steve.
The hotline number, and it's open, and I'm sure you're going to use it. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. Stop on by.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
All right, welcome back to it on this Thursday. It's kind of the way we're going to do this going forward. We're going to leave this part of the third hour open for your comments, your input, kind of a wrap on the day. Keep it open where I can reflect on what's going on, and so can you. The hotline number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. The hotline number, the common sense free-for-all hotline number, open for you. Dan on the line in Marquette this day. Dan, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Your last guest got me a little riled up.
yeah, me too.
My two comments are, blaming our system here is bribing the people to come in. It's kind of like blaming somebody whose house was robbed because if they didn't have such nice stuff, then the crooks wouldn't have been looking at them. And that seems kind of crazy to me. And the second thing is, for these people who are not willing to work, and I think not willing to work is the right answer. They're not able to work, but it just seems that maybe their life is a little too comfortable, that it's not worth them to go through that effort.
That's my point.
A low-paying job like that, because life is comfortable enough without it. And maybe there's a bigger problem than the fact that we got kids or jobs that aren't available.
That's exactly my point, Dan. How old are you?
Pardon me, how old am I? 55.
All right. And did you work as a kid?
Heck yeah. In fact, even before I was 16.
Exactly. So did I. I started working when I was 14 years old, picking melons. So I was a migrant worker in my own town, all right, for lack of a better term. I did. I picked Howell melons in southern Michigan for $2 an hour. That was the deal. And that's how we got started. And that's where hard work and the work ethic comes into play. But you've got all these entitled kids sitting on the couch. Oh, I don't want to go pick apples or whatever. I've already got an iPhone, and I've got cable TV. Why would I go want to do anything?
we always thought that if we wanted something, you should work for it and get the money so then you can buy it, whether it be a bicycle or a TV or whatever the heck it was.
There you go. UP Common Sense here from Dan and Marquette. Dan, thanks for checking in.
Hey, have a great day.
You too. Switching over, Bruce is on the line in Grand Rapids this morning. Listening to WGRW. Bruce, welcome to the program.
I'd just like to make a comment about the possible reason why Hispanics aren't voting for Rubio and Cruz. I've known many Hispanics in my life, and the ones of Mexican descent resent the Cubans. They think they're they think that the Cubans think that they're more elite. I think there's a little bit of intercultural racism there among the Hispanics, Mexican descent, and the Cuban descent.
Bruce, I can tell you, as a man married to a Hispanic woman, there's a fair amount of truth in what you just said, and not from her, but from the older generations. The divisions between the Cubans, the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, there are clear lines of division there. Not so much with the younger folks today, but with the older generations. Bruce, you're onto something.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, my wife is Hispanic, so I've witnessed some of those conversations. Not so much with her, of course. She puts up with me. I mean, let's be honest. Ivy puts up with me. She'll put up with just about anything. So, all right. And she loves me, too. I'm just going to tell you straight up. All right. Shifting gears. Steve is checking in from Lansing. Different topic this day. Steve, welcome to it.
Good morning. There are several things I want to make comment on. First of all, that last topic you were talking about, absolutely. I have been semi-close to the Hispanic population sometimes. And you're absolutely right about that.
Oh, there
are interracial divides.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you ask it.
Planned Parenthood.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Planned Parenthood.
This business with Planned Parenthood, the abortion gap should be closed. What are you going to do with the people that aren't online? Oh, you go to the library. That is so stupid. I just think that gap should be closed.
What happened to safe, legal, and rare? What happened to safe?
Pardon?
What happened to safe, legal, and rare? Remember that? That wasn't that Bill Clinton that said that's safe, legal, and rare when it came to abortions. The rare part is the part that I'm focused on.
Bill Clinton talked out both sides of his keister, whatever it took, to get whatever he needed. Remember, that's the same man who gave the Chicans the recipe for the geosynchronous satellite that allowed the Chinese to have the ICBM. So I can't believe Hillary is even on the radar screen to possibly be president because of his past, and they do think alike.
No, they do, and that's frightening, Stevie. Always a pleasure having you check in.
Anyway. This business of U of M?
Yeah, go one more.
Hello?
Yeah, go one more.
Okay, then then the one I'm going to go with is the city. You know, this business with Burge, the world's maddest mayor. I think a bad deal was cut between the city attorney and him, a little bit like this Peter Larrick?
I don't know.
Well, rumor has it this city attorney has never filed city income tax, and she also played a conflict role as city attorney and director of HR with no experience. That's the rumors I'm hearing.
So scandal at the city
we're
house.
Going to let Burge, pardon?
Scandal at the city house in Lansing. I got to jump and run, Steve-O. But Verge, I think it's cute that you call him the angriest mayor. Virgil the angry. I don't know if he's the angriest, but I think that's cute. When we come back, I want to play you one more thing from Hillary Clinton today. And I want you guys just to be ready any day, just like Steve was there and our good friends in the UP and so forth, Grand Rapids, all over this great state where the show plays. We're going to leave this part of the third hour open for you to respond to what's going on each day. Get you the opportunity to get on the air, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966, or look back at the big stories of the day, because we don't have enough time every day to cover everything that's going on. Too many big stories. You know, I didn't even get to the slashing attacks in New York City. There's been 12 people killed by stabbings or slashings in New York City in 2016. You know why? because Bill de Blasio, instead of having a war on crime, he has a war on the police department. You know, they want to lower police presence and so forth. What do you have? 567 slashings in New York City already this year. Safe subways, just a thing of the past, apparently. We'll be right back. So if you missed the Steve Harvey show yesterday, which I don't know how that would have happened. If you missed the Steve Harvey show, I mean, I know it's your favorite. I like Steve Harvey, by the way. I think, I know the occasion that I see Family Feud for a few minutes, he entertains me. He makes me laugh. And I think he's very good the Miss Universe thing notwithstanding, so it is. But Hillary Clinton was on the Steve Harvey show. I have no idea where it airs, how many stations around the country, so on and so forth. Clearly syndicated. But I haven't any idea. But I know this. Hillary Clinton was on there talking about gun control and saying how everybody's behind gun control policies and so on and so forth. And then she gets a little bit lost. You know, this another constitutional scholar from the Democratic Party. Roll the tape.
92% of the American people agree with what I said and what you've talked about. Right. And 85% of gun owners agree with that. So we've got to say to the gun lobby, you know what? There is a constitutional right for people to own guns, but there's also a constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Absolutely. That enables us to have a safe country where we are able to protect our children and others from this senseless gun violence.
Not exactly, Hill. You see, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, that was written by a 27-year-old American patriot by the name of Thomas Jefferson when he penned the Declaration of Independence. You know, these facts are pesky little devils, aren't they? Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness was a position paper, a statement of who we wanted to be as a people, but constitutional? No, not exactly, my dear. Not exactly. But, you know, after you and Barack Obama visit all 57 American states, maybe you can get a better handle on that. You know what I'm saying? Do you? Wow. Hillary Clinton. Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. Constitutional, right? Yeah, okay. Actually, the Second Amendment is enshrined there to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Get it straight, Hill. Get it straight. Tomorrow's Free for All Friday. The phone lines will be open all day for you, for your pleasure. If you're still snowed in, good. Enjoy it. Get an extra cup of coffee and join me right here on The Steve Gruber Show.